I think it depends on the film as far as an art form. How much is an art form? How much is sound an art form? I really believe it depends on the film and the director and the story. Okay, so let's look at Mad Max, for example. Can we give examples? Okay, let's look at the latest Mad Max, for example. I believe it won the Academy Award. And let's look at another film, which was a very small film made in Hungary called Son of Saul, and it won the Academy Award for Best Foreign Film. And let's see the relationship of those two films in sound and what kind of artistry goes into it. The first one is so visually intense. The stunt work and the moves of the vehicles themselves, the landscape, your eyes your brain is about to burn out from the amount of intense visual information that you get. But when you listen to the mix, now here's where the art form comes in. When you listen to the mix, you're always in a moment where not more than 3 elements of the soundscape are always playing at the same time, very brilliantly orchestrated. It's almost like listening to a piece of music. You have music, dialogue, backgrounds, Foley, right? Sound effects, sound design. You talk about 7 to 8 different disciplines that can be heard at the same time in a very immensely packed scene. So let's say we're Tom Hardy and we're outside the vehicle and climbing the tank, and then you hear the guitar guy in the background, etc. We're expecting to hear all of it, which we do normally in a big superhero film. But in this one, we're only pointing to you towards the emotional curvature of what we want you to see. So if we're in the truck, for example, we're only hearing the dialogue and we're barely hearing the sound of the truck, if at all. Or we might be on a huge chase scene and all we're hearing is music, right? Maybe a few voices in there. And it's a constant ride like that where we're minimizing the sound and we're expanding the visuals. Now, on the flip side of that, Son of Saul, or let's say Beast of the Southern Wild, you've got a tiny film with a very restricted budget. And the sound work is huge, right? The sound work is compared to a piece of art because it basically taps into your imagination. We'll start with Beast of the Southern Wild first. You've got a little girl contained in a shack. You've got a few driplets of water coming through, a few little shaky lights on the side, and a little girl really trembling from fear. But what they did was they poured their money into a major sound job of almost an 5-1 sound job to create the hurricane outside. You walk out of there and you're trembling because the sound of the imagination of the sound really put you into her place. It was basically her experience that we experienced from the sound. There was really, I'd say 80% sound, 20% picture. Pure art form, because, and don't forget, we're dealing with, minutes, sometimes 10 minutes, where you're dealing with just sonic information, and you never want to bore the audience. So the art form comes into weaving, exploring, finding ways to say the same. Let's say it's pouring rain, which is extremely boring to hear to, but we're going to have, let's say, waves of rain hitting the metal, then backs off, then a thunderbolt comes in, and you're constantly moving that rain into creating hurricanes. That's what we're about. We're about creating sound as an art form to move it forward. Now, Son of Saul is the same thing. Very small film. Camera's always on Saul's face. Blurry activity in the background, and you as the audience wants to understand what that blurry activity is, which happens to be the Holocaust. Very ugly subject. The soundscape is so important in that because it triggers the imagination to no end. And by the time you walk out of that entire feature, you've been in that concentration camp. And you've been in that concentration camp through the sonic experience, in fact, and your imagination. So yeah, it's a huge art form. But if I were to do a straight comedy or a straight little drama, I'm not going to interfere too much. It's all about the dialogue, but it's an art form in itself. Just to say, okay, hold on, we gotta just let it sit there in a realistic form. What does that mean also, and how do we make the audience feel really comfortable and enveloped and warm and okay and not threatened, etc. So we're looking at sound as an overall, right? I look at a script, I know the tenor of what the sound will be throughout the film. I know that I'm not going to put low tones in a comedy. I'm not going to put happy birds in a horror film during the most horrific horror film. So it's that kind of thing that we're definitely an art form.